Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Talk Music. Today's guest is a wonderful painter and a friend that I met back in the day at the guitar shop. His name is Jim Deaton, and he's a retired school teacher, now really focused on his art career. And it's been really cool kind of seeing his art blossom and take life just, through following him on Facebook and the like of the internet. We sit down and talk about his process, how he approaches creating art, and not just creating art, but his actual different phases of his styles of art as we come to talk about it. And it's an interesting perspective as an artist to realize that you can have more than one style and more than one love within your expression. And those bodies of work can speak for themselves and don't have to be tied down to one sound as the record industry certainly puts in our heads, or any industry, I think, even a gallery wants to really sell a style of an artist. And so it's an interesting conversation, and I'm so honored to have had him on. Glad to have gotten the conversation going with an artist. I plan on having many more artists on the show. So it's one of many. And thank you to Brother Jim for coming on. I'm going to put some links so you can check out all of his artwork at his website. And I hope you enjoy this episode with Brother Jim Deaton. Brother Jim, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Claudio.
What an honor to have you, man. It's been a couple of years. It's been many years since I've known you, bro. We go back and we were talking about this to our friend Bill Richardson's shop.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool,
I miss that shop.
Oh, man, me too, man.
I don't know who to take my guitars to anymore.
Well, the guy that I take my guitars to was his competitor back in the day, was Ian Bannerman, who was also just a guy that I've always been around and appreciated his work because... I love Bill, man. I freaking miss Bill. Yeah. Bill taught me so much. He literally raised me.
Well, his stories were he's connected so much music. It was so cool that I love to go in there just to be entertained.
Right. And that was the vibe, man. It was like you would go in there not just to go get your guitar fixed, but go in there to hang the fuck out and see who came in.
What ended up?
What stories would come up, what videos he'd show
you. He put on great videos. He loved the Deep Purple. And he also, he turned me on. He gave me a bunch of his old Hendrix albums. And I'm definitely way into Hendrix.
Wow.
Yeah, he gave me some really cool collections.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
So when did you first meet Bill? Tell me about that.
Oh, God. I'm trying to think of how long ago it was, and I'm not sure exactly how long it was, but when I met him, God, I wish I could tell you that I remember exactly when, but it was a good while ago. I was teaching middle school, and I guess I had just been there for a little while when I first went and met Bill to get my guitars fixed because I had a steady job, so I could afford to get my guitars worked on. But after he got them all set up, that's when I would just go in just to talk,
just to hang out. Right. Or whenever your guitar was getting worked on, it would just be like, you'd be like, "No, man, it's cool. I'm in no rush, man. I just want to come chill and play your guitars and play through your amp."
And then he'd start putting on those videos and stuff. So,
or the videos that he'd have when you walk in.
Yeah.
Just
whatever was on.
Shit,
yeah.
What the fuck is this? Bill's like, "Oh yeah, cheers, man. You didn't know I liked synthesizers, man." It's like, what? Like this whole other world I remember kind of opened up, especially once he moved into the place next door.
Oh yeah, that setup he had in there to make sound with, man. It was amazing.
Holy shit, he had a wall. I still have a video of it, man, of just him, just pulling and putting in cables and pushing buttons. It was crazy, man. It
was like sci-fi.
I love that stuff, man, and I love synthesizers now. Not that I didn't before. I've always been attracted to them, but man, he definitely sparked my interest again. And now I own a Monologue. The Korg Monologue is like this badass little synthesizer that actually on the keyboard has a little LED screen that shows you how the wave screen is being affected as you change the shape, the oscillators, tuning in the different oscillators.
What type of display are you looking at when that's happening?
Dude, let me show you. It's right here.
Yeah. Well, see this. Love this stuff.
So it's funny because I actually just did, I would just put out a podcast today by this it's going to go out later today, I should say, by this amazing guy named Hakeem Bellamy, who's the poet laureate here in Albuquerque. Very first, I should say. Nowadays, he's not. He works for the mayor's office in the cultural affairs department, I think. But the podcast that we did, the reason I'm bringing this up is because since he works for the mayor's office and the mayor loves everything he does, he was asking me to blurb out all of the F words that he used, even though the other curse words were fine, you know. He said he loves the F bomb, you know, that's one of his favorite, you know, he loves fuck. I don't have to say the F bomb because I'm not
You
cursing.
can say fuck, yes.
Yeah, that's right. The internet. It's the internet. Come on,
God,
people.
if any of my students are going to listen to this now, my current students, but I'm not going to tell them about it, so it's okay.
They will find out about it way later.
Yeah, when they get a little older, maybe.
But man, so what I did to...
Although
to
I do have one that's in her 70s.
Damn. All right, we'll get into that.
Yeah, okay.
But so Hakeem asked me to blurb out all the F-bombs. And so I got this little synthesizer. And you can see there's that little LED screen. And what happens as I start shifting stuff around and getting it to eventually turn into like this. This different like wavelength.
Yeah.
Right?
So you're seeing amplitude and wavelength as well.
Yeah. As well as like...
Oh, that's a little more abstract.
And like whenever you already just like go into what is already there in some of the presets that they have, it's intense, man.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. This, if anyone wants to get into synthesizers, man, I recommend this one because it's a great entry one because it's, first of all, it's synthesized. It's a monologue. It's a mono synthesizer. So it's not, you know, that you're playing chords and having to deal with all that stuff. But you take one note and you learn how to mess with it and like realize what you're doing to that one note.
Right.
And that little screen teaches you it, which is pretty
you
badass.
pay attention to the effect and you have the visual to go with it. So you tie those things together.
Yeah, in some ways, I mean, if you just like do the extra bit of research to connect the dots of what this is doing and what that is doing, there's so many amazing videos nowadays with YouTube that it's like, man, there are series like explaining, like laying out how to become like proficient in playing that thing.
That's pretty cool.
It's awesome. Yeah, I love that instrument and take that on the road with me. And it's battery powered. I just put my headphones in it, you know, make sure not to turn it up too loud to not go deaf, you know. But besides that, it's great, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to always have my music cranked, and I'm noticing that I've got it turned down more than I used to.
Wow, tell me about it, man. I remember the first time I was in the studio and seeing somebody mix.
But you're a kid.
No,
you
yes,
still
sir.
got to crank it up.
Yes, sir, I do. I
Okay, you're
do
not
crank
a kid.
it up.
You're a kid. It's
And
just a relative term, that's all.
But I do crank it up now, especially like when I'm on the road, man. I open up all the windows and I crank the stereo. I love that. Like, there's nothing like that, you know. But I remember the first time I was in the studio listening to somebody mix their album and turn everything way down. It was like, what? Like, why are you doing that? They're like, well, not only do you like hear everything better, but also like you are listening to music all day. If you've got it turned up, you're just gonna like exhaust your ears.
I played music loud for so long that I still like to every once in a while I'll crank the guitar up, but most of the time I've got it toned down.
Yeah, yeah, man.
Because you can get so much good distortion out, even at low.
That's
low
true.
volume.
That's true. There is a thing though about turning up your guitar because
there is.
Man, growing up, I was always like, I would never crank my amplifier until like my parents and everyone left the house.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right? Because you can't fuck everyone's mind up and have everyone be banging on like, turn that fucking shit down. What the fuck are you doing? It's like, no, like, but like also, I had solid state at that point in my life when I was cranking up my amplifier and stuff. So it was on distortion and just cranking a lot. It felt amazing. Felt like powerful. First time you hit just a power chord with just like blaring distortion on a little Marshall that's just cranks to the balls. It's just like to 11.
I remember when my dad had an apartment for a while. He was at a point in his life where he was actually just living in an apartment instead of in a house for a while.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I got the nerve to do this, but when he was gone and I was at his place, I plugged my guitar, and this is before I could play shit. I mean, I still can't play, but it's been 25, 30 years, whatever. I still can't play. But then I really couldn't play at all.
Right.
And I was just making a lot of noise. But I plugged it into his stereo.
You played the guitar into his stereo?
Yes, I plugged it into
like
the
quarter
receiver.
inch into the
receiver.
Okay,
There's a thing to plug in there. And I'm sure I screwed his speakers way up because I had it so cranked up, and that no neighbors came over is unbelievable to me.
Wow, man.
Because it was horrible playing, and it was loud.
Your dad was like, what happened to the speakers?
He never said a word.
He never said anything.
He never
That's
noticed.
Good. That's good. I'm glad they weren't messed up. I did mess up someone's speaker one time. And it was right.
I think they did. He just didn't know I did it.
He just didn't know it was you. That's good. That's good. I messed up someone's
Sorry,
speakers
Dad.
and they knew. And when you do, it's like, oh god dang, you always know.
Yeah.
Then you hopefully don't do that again. But man, like
Until the next time.
beyond just cranking speakers and stuff like that, like once I got into tubes and started cranking tubes, that hasn't been until just recently because I started getting into tubes like a long time ago. And I would crank a little Blues Junior that I had, but now I have a super,
Cool.
a super reverb that Mr. Bill Richardson himself was so gracious enough to sell me.
I've probably played through that.
Yeah, oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, that's Stan Hirsch's old amplifier,
Yeah.
to my understanding.
Very cool.
And so that amp, I've never cranked,
Well, that would be louder than shit. You'd wake the whole neighborhood up.
Oh my God, yeah. But like I finally started, cranking it a bit, and you just realize like what Derek Trucks and what all those guys do when they have the volume being their overdrive.
Right.
It's powerful,
and
man.
What Jimmy did changed everything.
Oh yeah.
Because there's some players at that time that were current with Jimmy, but he was the one who took it to a different level. Just being able to crank and get all your distortion just from volume.
Right. Sheer
Just drive
volume,
the
man.
shit out of that thing.
Talk about volume and just cranking. I remember someone was interviewing Eddie Van Halen on his tone.
Yeah.
And they were like, what's your tone? What's your settings? He's just like, turn everything up. Just like take my arm and just like crank all the knobs to go all the way to the maximum, It's like tone. What are you talking about thinking about tone,
Do it loud. And
Yeah, it's in your fingers, man. The tone is in your fingers. Like beyond that, it's like just crank that shit. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's some stuff, man. I remember the first time I played through a Marshall stack to talk about shimmy and doing that. It was just like, man. I want to own that Marshall stack. Yes,
your perspective.
I want to own an old. It doesn't have to be a Marshall stack, just a stack in general. A half stack, a full stack. There's just something so powerful about it.
Yeah.
Beyond the fact that it breaks your back and sometimes you piggy bank because they are expensive. It's worth it, man. You have a wall of sound like that,
I still, when I have some people over playing, which I haven't done for a while, I had a just kind of a band that would play occasionally.
Yeah.
And I've never been a serious musician at all. This is just something that I wish I had the talent to be a serious musician.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
It's nice to sit with one though right now.
No,
It's kinda
man.
nice. Well, I've heard what you do, so we're talking day and night. But when we would play, I had a friend who had a Marshall half stack.
Yeah.
So and he would leave it at my house instead of haul it back and forth because we did the jamming at my house. So I played in there. But I've got this Rivera. It's only a 12-inch speaker in this thing, but it's louder than I want to play already by itself. But I also have a 212 cabinet that I
Sometimes plug into it.
plug into
Wow,
it.
as the extension. Wow.
Yeah.
Having that many speakers though, it's amazing, man. Like having that many speakers in one amplifier is sick. And then when you get into two amplifiers,
yeah,
shit,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
You get with like messing around with the delays and stuff. I have this friend that you might have known from Bill's shop. He's an amazing guy named Roger Ralphs.
Yeah. Well, I've had some interesting conversations.
Oh my
with that
God,
guy.
Roger's a character, man. I'm gonna have him on the podcast down the road.
You
too,
should,
man.
definitely.
He's awesome. Fucking, he's a spiritual friend, a guru of
Yes.
mine. But he fucking he was like one of the guys that was always like, man, like get this pedal, like do this, and like come check it out at my house, bro. Like you want to see what I'm talking about, like this ping pong thing. Like I was hip to it before from guys like Larry Mitchell or John Maestas when I was growing up with him, but like having the opportunity to play over at Roger's place with the wall of sound and the wall of
that's pretty
amplifiers
cool.
and having it ping pong from like this amplifier to the amplifier behind you. You know what I'm saying? You're just like, holy shit, this is psychedelic.
I have not.
And Roger
I have
was
not
the one
had that experience.
Roger was the one that got me hip to the monologue, man.
Oh, okay.
He was the one that was like, bro, you should really get this. This could really do some interesting stuff for you. And man,
Did you put it in your last recording at all?
no.
Have you put it in any of that stuff?
No, I haven't. Man,
Bubble Bath?
Bubble Bath. Shout out to Bubble Bath Records in the house. Man, the album that I recorded, get this, bro. It's been about 2 years, man. I recorded that album in January of 2016, and I released it independently like through the backseat of, or the trunk of my car, so to speak, and at the gigs that I was playing for half a year, between like 9 to 11 months. And November of 2017, I released it internationally through Bubble Bath Records.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. And so like John puts a bunch of sounds that are like what a synth does on the album through his guitar tones or colors that he puts in,
right?
Just by him being a whiz and like a spaceship, guy like that. Because John gets crazy sounds out of the guitar like a synthesizer gets. He gets out all that stuff on his pedals and through these crazy things that he messes around with. But that album came at a point that I hadn't gotten into the synthesizer
right.
yet. But I definitely see it getting into the stuff later. Maybe not the next album either, but definitely some stuff down the road. Who knows? Maybe this next album. Who's to say not, right?
Yeah. Well, what happens, happens.
Who the fuck knows what's going to happen tomorrow?
I don't know what's going to happen in the next 30 seconds.
So tell me about you, bro. Tell me about this art that you've been making, man. I've been like following all of the art that you put up on social media, and I love it, bro. It's like,
well, mostly
it's inspiring seeing all your colors and
thank you.
Seeing the colors that you imagine, bro.
I kind of I don't like consider myself. I don't want to put myself in a. I'm trying to figure out how to say this right now. Like some kind of a label, like, okay, I'm an artist. Well, I'm an artist in that I do art. Yes, I'm just
I'm
life. I'm life. I'm life, and it's that's something I'm doing with this life right now.
Hey, that's beautiful.
And it's not me. It's something that's happening right now. Yeah, and it's something that I kind of dig. So I'm gonna kind of stick with it.
Keep doing that. Right, right.
But I've been painting pretty seriously since about 1993. Well, since 1993. With acrylics, but I do all kinds of other art too, and I have all along. I got a degree in ceramic sculpture back.
Did you really?
Yeah.
From here or
from UNM, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
I went there. I was there I started there in 1977, and it took me like 14 years before I got my bachelor's.
Now, but you were that's awesome. Slip that in there. Now, you were saying though that
I didn't really say that, did I?
I know, right? You were saying that you went to Sandia High School.
I went there once
for a semester, and then you went out east. Where'd you go out east?
I went to a school in Alexandria, Virginia called T.C. Williams. Okay. Does that ring a bell at all?
T.C. Williams.
It might.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. T.C. Then I'm going to tell you the story just a little bit here. T.C. Williams is the same high school that was depicted in the story, and it was a true story. When Denzel Washington was in the movie Remember the Titans.
Okay.
That movie was all based on T.C. Williams High School football team and what was going on at that time in the early 70s. With Alexandria was like the last integrated school in the country.
Yeah.
And T.C. Williams was a new senior high school, just 11th and 12th grade.
Yeah.
And they were the first ones it was made as an integrated school, and there was some issues early on. There was a lot of racial issues that went on there because there's a lot of opposition to this happening still in the area. There was people that were very progressive and people that it's kind of like now when you have this polarization of thought, of political thought and just morality, just on both sides. And so that was before my time by only a few years. I think that was like, I'm trying to remember the setting for the movie, if it was in 73, 72, 73, somewhere in there. And I was there in 75, 6, and I graduated in 77.
Okay.
So
was it that when you were there? I mean, like I know you were explaining all that stuff, but initially as I was hearing you say that, I was thinking that you were talking about the movie. You were referring to the movie.
Yeah.
So what was it like
mellowed a lot by the time I was there, but that memory was still definitely around because, some of those kids, their siblings were involved in that stuff.
But that movie wasn't around when you went there, right?
No.
So
no.
So you just went there, had the experience of just going to like a place in Virginia where you had to go because was your dad in the military? Or what'd you guys go out there? You just got to work out there.
I was living in Albuquerque before, and my parents had been divorced when I was in 9th grade.
Okay.
And my mom moved back out east. We used to live out there before when my dad was in law school at Georgetown in the 60s. And I went to first grade out there and kindergarten, first grade out there. Then I moved back out here.
Got you.
And then I went back out there in high school because at Sandia, I was out smoking pot and drinking beer and not attending class very often.
I don't know anything about that. What is that?
Oh, man. Can you open the window?
So it smells a little bit in this room right now. Audio, what's going on?
I don't smoke anything, and that's the truth these days.
I do smoke some.
Oh, dude. Oh, yeah. You don't have to admit anything.
Hey, I plead the fifth, I smoke these different, music tests that come up when they came up at university. I'm just going to shut up and let you keep going.
No, well, it can go. We can be very
right. It's like people are like, I heard you say you smoked. It's like, no, what I meant to say was, I smoke. People when I play hockey against them.
Exactly.
Table hockey.
Yeah, I played some b-ball with this kid back in 11th grade. I smoked him. Of course, that's definitely false.
Right.
Because although I could play with my friends and do pretty well, I'll tell you another story about TC Williams. Well, actually, Francis Hammond was a school that was a feeder to TC, and I went there in the second semester of 10th grade after going to Sandia the first semester.
Okay.
I went to Hammond. That was a feeder school for TC. And there I joined the track team. And I ran the 220 hurdles. And I was one of the fastest guys around back here in Albuquerque at the time. I was not competing at school at all, but I was just faster than anybody I knew. Well, except for Michael Carter, who was a national champion track guy back at Sandia at that time. But he was the only fast person I knew. But I was the next fastest guy I knew back then. I moved out and went to Hammond, joined the track team, and I was the slowest fucker on the team. The level of athlete was just a whole nother ball game altogether. I was not in the same league with any of these guys, and they finally ended up kicking me off the team. Not because I was so slow, although that's why I'm sure they really kicked me off. It's because I had a D in my report card the first semester from Sandia, although I was making straight A's at Hammond.
Oh, really?
That was just an excuse to get me off the damn team. I was bringing them down.
That's not right.
and I got to tell you, the coach, one of the track coaches there, was represented in the movie Remember the Titans because he was an assistant football coach also. Wow. And Coach Hines, you weren't my favorite, but I forgive you, man. I don't know if he's still alive or not, but he definitely wouldn't know who the hell I am.
You never remember those names. You never forget those names, though, right? It's like engraved in your mind. It's like Mr. Holder. I remember that PE teacher. It's like you always remember those names. Like, God damn it.
Wait, Mr. Holder? I wonder if his wife is a teacher, because if so, I may have been teaching with her for several years in Rio Rancho.
His wife might have been. He was a teacher at a middle school up here in the East Mountains.
I'm going to have to ask her.
His name was Richard Holder, and Richard is Dick.
Not Richard.
Yeah.
No, not the same guy. Terrible. So that's good.
But we always busted his balls for that. A lot of puns in there.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, let you keep going.
My mother told me that puns are lowest form of humor. She was an English teacher. That made me work on them.
Oh, your mom was an English teacher.
Yeah.
What was your dad do? What'd your dad do?
My dad, he's still around. My mom, she passed away pretty young, but my dad he was a retired judge. He was a federal magistrate judge, the chief federal magistrate judge, his last job in that arena.
Wow.
He headed the Police Oversight Commission after he had retired. And that was kind of just a screwed up place to be, because they didn't have enough real power for it to be very good. Before that, he was a district court judge, and he was an attorney for a good while here.
Right. Cool. Some stuff, man. So, where did art and music fit into your childhood? Where did you start creating, as far as the two of them? Because I do both of the things you do, and I love expressing myself like that.
And I push on one end, and you are pushing on that other end more. I play music, but that's release for me and everything.
Yeah.
And I know you're doing your art kind of seriously, though, and I'm not playing music seriously. So it's not quite there. But the whole art thing kind of is the way I would tell it to my students, because I told the story for years. I would just go through kind of a biography and tell them about how I became an artist. And I used to always start the same way. It was in high school in my senior year at TC Williams, where I had Art 1, And I finally found something that I connected with really well and really enjoyed it. And that story changed in the last couple of years when I had a realization.
Yeah.
Because I realized that that's not it at all. That might be of where I started actively deciding I was going to do that and was actually making art. But the influence happened when I was just a little boy because my mother had exquisite taste in art. And she had wonderful art throughout the house. She did art too. She had a minor in art in college. And she kind of always would take time to do some art. Different periods of her life were more productive than others as far as that goes. But her watercolors were beautiful. She ended up doing some stone sculpture and some beautiful stuff in the latter part of her life. And she taught art for 1 year at Cleveland Junior High School in Albuquerque and hated it. And so it was English after that. And she did that the rest of her career. But the art that she had in the house, I can just remember sitting in the dining room, just on the floor with the heat register that's coming on the floor and pushing heat out. And before a cool day going to school where I wanted to warm up a little bit, as just a little boy, I remember this, like in second grade, third grade, all in that time when I would just sit down by this heat register. I would always want to give myself an extra 5 or 10 minutes to do that before I had to go to school. So I would sit there, and there was these 2 paintings on either side of the dining room table, these really kind of semi-abstracted street scenes from an Italian painter, and they were of these street scenes in Italy, but they were abstracted just enough to where my imagination would take off, and I would get mesmerized and transported in different adventures. Every time I would look at these. And I noticed that all through that, in the bathroom, I would go in the bathroom and I'd sit there and stare at the paintings. I'd sit on the toilet and stare at these paintings, and they would just change my consciousness.
Yeah.
And it's something that it hasn't, not that it hasn't, well, it's not only not left me, but it's resonated stronger and stronger in the last number of years. It's that is coming back to me stronger and stronger. I had some interesting childhood experience, and I'll get into that as we go on, as far as consciousness alteration goes.
Yeah.
But that definitely changed my my perception or my way of perceiving the world around me. And when I realized that just a few years ago, in my last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years of teaching at public schools, when I would do that one day, there was always one day where I'd bring in, one day every semester, I would bring in a truckload of artwork. I would just fill up my truck and bring in paintings that would fill the whole art room up. I just set them up all around. And that day I would just talk to the kids about my own personal history as an artist and invite feedback and let them kind of interact with the art. So we'd have the conversation. Then they would go around, walk around the room, and I encourage them to have conversations. Excuse me. I've got a little allergies going on right now.
No worries. I got some tissues there. If you need
Okay,
it.
cool. So they would have these conversations, and that would give me some information to kind of talk with them about afterwards. When we have conversations, I would sit them back down at the end and have a conversation with them about, well, not only what did you see in this, but what do you see differently now that you've seen this, or how does this affect what you thought art was? Because I have a lot of abstract work. I have very realistic work too. I move all around. Galleries hated me for a long time.
Why? Because
they wanted to see the same style all the damn time.
You don't have a style. You just like love.
I have several styles.
No, I know, right?
With bodies of work behind them.
But you have love for like multiple explorations, right? It's not
absolutely.
just like you're not just like engraved in like doing one thing. Because like there is styles of artists that like galleries are able to sell because that's your type of style.
I'm going to be very nonlinear here.
Go on.
I'm not just going to go. We'll come back into this more and more, but because it reminds me of something else, and that. And now, of course, I just had a brain fart, so that's going to happen. It happens more and more as the years go by. Oh man. Well, I'll come back to that. Okay, so in the art classes, this one day a year, I would bring all these paintings in, and it would buy me credibility with the students a lot too, which that helped. But it was also before we got into serious art. We had worked on fundamentals up to this point and explored some a little bit of meaning and kind of how to find that. Inspiration, or not just inspiration, but something that is going to resonate over time, because I always found that to be very important with art.
Yeah. Like, how's it going to stick with you?
Yeah.
It's going to.
Yeah. How's it going to affect the other people that look at it too? And one of the things I would always say is, and I still say, I should stop talking in the past because this is very present.
Yeah.
One of the things I always say is to make a successful piece of art, or when you know you've create a piece of art, when you know it's okay. What am I trying to say? The way you know it's successful after you've made a piece of art is if it ignites or sparks the imagination of the viewer. So if you can activate the imagination of the viewer, you've succeeded. And so that's because
if you activate the imagination of the viewer. That's beautiful. Yeah.
And that line is one that I've when I came up with that wording, it rang true to me about my own experience with art that's meaningful to me. If it activates my imagination, I interact with it.
Yes.
If I'm interacting with it, there's a dialogue and a dialogue is something that's not static. It is a
dynamic, right?
Moving, dynamic thing.
Right.
It's like improvisational music, and that's how I play my guitar most of the time too. Is very improvisational.
Yeah.
People say, "Well, do you know this song? Do you know this song?" God, I don't know enough songs. But if you play it, I can play along.
Yep.
You know, I'll be able to do some jam with it. It'd be helpful if you tell me a key, but I'll find it eventually. If you don't.
I'll get to sounding good in a little bit. Just give me
a couple minutes here. I'll be all right.
It's definitely an experience of like creation and embracing creation from just loving creation, because like I love playing music that way too.
Yeah.
And have that relationship with it, even though I did transform into that love into not just being a hobby, but actually being my profession and my job. Because then it was like, well, then I did have to put my big boy pants on and like learn enough songs to where then if I got called for a gig, I wouldn't be embarrassed and have to look at my book all the time. Because then in jazz, especially in improvisational music, as we're talking about, you got to know the form. You know what I'm saying? And so in improvisational music within the medium of jazz, the form is the song. And if you don't know songs, then you can't speak the language of jazz to other musicians in another country that don't speak the same language as you. But they can be like, autumn leaves, or they can be like, like alone together, It's like, then you're like, okay, I got you. Yeah, I know that song. Let's go. What key? D. It's like Ray. Because a lot of other countries still use the do re mi fa sol la ti do.
Right.
Or just the letter,
Right.
If they're good, they know the Americans.
Yeah. Well, the thing about with music or with art, it's how much vocabulary do you have?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's kind of what you're talking about there is having enough vocabulary within a genre of music or within, and that might be songs, that might just be riffs that work.
Right.
In certain circumstances.
Right, if you get called to be a rhythm guitar player or I'm sorry, like a solo guitar player for like a singer's blues or R&B gig, then it's like, that's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Right?
That's something I can actually kind of do.
Well, that's the thing. And in the world of musicians, there isn't just like a professional musician, quote unquote. Like there are street musicians that make their whole living that are way better musicians than a lot of these educated, quote unquote, educated musicians, because like they're too busy picking their nose and practicing in the practice room as opposed to making music and doing what you're talking about with art, which is making people feel something and trying to capture whatever that is. As well as a musician, you're trying to be able to try and be there in that moment. I mean, you can't recreate it. I mean, I think the moment, like music just kind of comes to you, like art and like experiences of like being inspired.
You respond to what's happening.
That's right.
And if you can respond to what's happening without restricting it, and this is going to take me back to a while ago, and it's not exactly the same train, but it's almost the track is parallel.
Yeah.
And and it's going to derail again probably here. But God, okay, that's twice now. The train's gonna be hurting. Jeez, I've got to get it. When I got something on the tip of my tongue, or
Maybe you should smoke a little bit to remember. Memories.
I'm tempted, except my lungs.
I know.
My lungs don't like that. Shit,
I know. I'm just kidding. Man.
Can't do that.
It's an experience though to like always like be like, oh yeah. What? Oh fuck, I forgot what I was just gonna say. It's like that always happens to me too. Whenever you like are with someone and you remember like, oh, do you remember that time? And then all of a sudden you're like, shit. What time? What time was I about to bring up?
Well, yeah, and I've done this twice on the same thing, and it's going to come to me eventually, and it'll come out. So I just allow that to happen. But in the meantime, I'm not, like I said, not going to be linear with this. Going to kind of jump all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to a different place about consciousness again because
sure.
Currently, I'm going to take it this way because I've dabbled in religion before and I was not really brought up religious.
What do you mean you dabbled in? Okay, so you weren't brought up religious. I was just about to ask you about your upbringing. Yeah.
No, well, we went to the Unitarian Church, but that was
every Sunday.
No,
every Wednesday. When was?
No, it was Sundays. But
you just go. You were like a holiday.
When
Unitarian?
Mom made me go, I went.
Oh, got you.
But
she went. Her and your dad went.
And my dad went.
Every
and
Sunday.
They kind of had different purposes of going, but it was not really religious so much as social. The Unitarian Church, there are people that are very religious that go there,
right?
And there's people that are very spiritual that aren't religious, and they're very open to all of that. So I kind of like that part about Unitarianism. I don't consider myself, I don't want to identify myself really with anything. That's where I would like to reach.
I like that. You were talking about that earlier about like how to,
and I'm
am I an
playing
art?
back on that.
It's like you
I do art.
We don't. Yeah, that's right. Like and like we don't have to have any title because like the titles are just divisions.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
it's limiting.
It's limiting.
It's
and
limiting.
Like why put that cap on us?
And this is what I'm trying to say. Okay, now it's come back again. Okay, is what I'm looking for in life, and this is more like an Indian type of, and I won't say philosophy because it's not a philosophy. It's a way of being, and that is they're seeking. That's because the people that are seeking, and there's a lot in India, and I've been listening to a guru for a while from India on YouTube.
Which guru?
That really, Sadhguru.
Okay.
And Sadhguru means, well, I won't get into that now because I'm going to lose my train of thought if I do that.
Okay.
Yeah, S-A-D-H.
Yeah, got you.
G-U-R-U.
Got you.
And definitely check him out on YouTube because there's some really interesting, very interesting things.
Right.
But part of what he does talk about is, well, there's a meditation that I do every morning, first thing in the morning. I'll have a glass of or a cup of lemon water, and I'll do meditation. And the guided meditation I do is a Sadhguru meditation, and basically it's just you need to have some of the background for it to really make a lot of sense to you right now. But just it's talking about I am not the body, I am not the mind, and you're repeating that mantra. The body might be mine, but I am not the body. Yeah. This is an accumulation of food through the years and experiences and things that the body has. It's also got memory from centuries ago that's in it. That's why I have this color eyes, this color hair, that kind of thing. So the body has a natural intelligence that's unconscious, but it's definitely there. That's been around forever, but it's also just an accumulation with the foods I've been eating and the movement that my body has made for how I'm built and for strength and everything else or whatever. But also, I am not the mind, because the mind is an accumulation of experiences and thoughts and reactions in a very finite period of time that ends in a very finite period of time too. And what I think I am, because me, these are all kind of different things, in a way. Yeah. But I am this molecule that's floating out in front of me right now, and I am this molecule that is 20 zillion light years away. Consciousness is just a state of realization of what this is. I am everything, I am nothing, whatever. It's I that using that pronoun is kind of tough to make a lot of sense of sometimes for me, and I'm using a different pronoun now. And that when I say for me, that's more of the personality, and the personality is something that I think is I am not that personality. Is something that I'm accustomed to. It's something that has been built through my experiences and the mentality that I have accumulated over time. But time is something that's a concept. Time
Sure.
is a man-made concept. I don't want to believe in anything. I want to know or not know. It's like things.
So here's a
yeah.
question I have for you. So when you say that excuse me. Oh, look at that. How rude. All right now. Who didn't put their phone off? Come on now.
Make sure mine's off too. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
What I was going to ask you was the experience of recognizing, and I know what you're talking about and resonate with what you're talking about, because Raj and I talk about this quite a bit. But my question was, when you say you're, like, I understand you're observing your behavior and like your tendencies, right? And you're like, you are not those tendencies.
And when you observe, what that is just a consciousness of
yes,
what it is.
Of what it is, exactly.
Yeah.
But within that, knowing what it is and recognizing that you are not it,
Right.
you also still recognize that you, to some capacity, can not control it by the sense of what control and domination means, but control it by not have it control you and have it just be the personality or the thing that you have and you deal with. But
strictly from
you can change, right?
being aware, consciously aware of what this body and mind is up to. That takes you to, well, I shouldn't say it takes you anywhere. It doesn't take you anywhere. It gives you insight, or you words are inadequate here. They really are. For me, because I don't have the vocabulary to put it out there, listening to Sadhguru is really interesting stuff.
Sure.
And it's made me try not to think so much sometimes.
Sure.
Because I overthink, and what I'm doing is putting myself in this loop of thinking instead of actually what is. And that's the end of that little phrase there. What is, and what is not. I mean, what I find belief systems do, and the reason I don't subscribe to any particular religion myself. Mm-hmm. Or belief systems in general, although I say that, and of course it's a lie, because I'm sure I do in all kinds of ways that I'm not conscious of.
Right. We've all got our tendencies that we grew up with.
But yes, our accumulations.
Yes.
But I'm trying not to believe anything, because all a belief is once you put a belief in place, what you're building is a structure around that is limiting.
Right.
And I'm trying to achieve limitlessness or boundlessness.
Right.
And that's kind of where I would love for my mind to understand that a little bit better when it's time for me to say goodbye to this body and this mind.
Right.
And be happy about just, okay, bye.
Yes.
You know?
Just being able to detach.
Yeah.
I think we were talking off the podcast about psychedelics, and I think a lot of psychedelics help out a lot with that in terms of embracing death. If anything, DMT, for being the most valuable of lessons that it has taught me, and I've been able to try and integrate and continue to integrate every day, is embracing not having fear of death.
That's the whole thing. And Sadhguru will say that too. It's not just fear of death, it's fear to lose fear of suffering. I have no fear of death at all. I mean, I don't believe that I've ever had fear of death so much, but I do have fear have had fear and do have fear of suffering. And that's.
Do you think that fear of suffering comes from like your Christian upbringing? I mean, even though it
wasn't really Christian, but
right?
I mean, I was around Christian thinkers a lot,
right?
Although my family was more.
But I mean, like that suffering is so connected with Christianity and Jesus dying for your sins, and like for me at least, growing up in my own experience, which was Catholicism, And,
and I knew a lot of Catholic friends growing
good
up.
old Catholic guilt. You know what I'm talking about? So like, what you're referring to is something that I was instilled with, and I have to battle and constantly work towards. And so I'm not like, at all attacking the way that you brought it up, but it's a more of like beyond not practicing belief.
Yeah,
like within your state of consciousness and observing. And being in that place, like when you observe, you also recognize that action, right? And like and like that action beyond belief, and like how it plays into your life and how it plays into the current is something that you and I act on a lot because we both create a lot. I mean, we both respond to, our experiences, like we were talking about earlier, through reflection of like your accumulation of everything that comes up. And you're like, all of a sudden, you're like, oh, snap. I just sat down and started painting these beautiful purple sunsets or these, these green, all these things come up, right? And so like the experience for us as artists and spiritual beings and seekers, as you're speaking about, I resonate with, but I also like... am grateful for arts because they allow me to take action unbounded by the guilt or the fear of suffering or the fear of anything brought on by domestication via religions.
Well, and
beliefs.
What it does for me, and it sounds like the same kind of thing. When you're really involved in your art, you get almost trance-like when you're really into it.
Yeah,
and it does take you. It's a meditation. And a meditation is freeing you from the limitations of mind and body, because consciousness is saying that thing doesn't matter. It's just you're flowing, and when you can get that,
ride the wave.
Yeah, ride the wave, man. Surf.
Yeah. If you can't just fall and get back up, it's like
when
it's
you
all right.
Talk about psychedelics, or when we were talking about psychedelics. One thing that I think is a horrible thing about psychedelics, and I was guilty about this the first time I ever tried mushrooms. The idea was just to get high. And I realized after a while that I don't want to get high on this stuff. That's not what it's about at all. It's about, trying to open yourself up and break down boundaries. And
when did you realize that, though? Like in that experience, or like
probably
after?
That first experience,
right after,
to some degree, but doesn't mean I didn't do it to get high again.
Did you do a lot of it that very first time? Do you remember?
Not a ultra high dose or anything.
Yeah,
no. Yeah, but it's enough to get round the bend. That
there's such a lack of ritual here, and.
And I think we lack that.
We do, man, and not only that, but like we also like.
It can also be a good thing, though.
It can be, but it also like offers the experience of psychedelics for youth. It makes them very vulnerable, which is.
Yeah, when you have to start facing your demons.
That's right, and you need to go there. But when you're at an EDM party for the weekend. And you are with your friends, and you are not expecting to face your deepest, darkest demons, which you will face if you eat enough mushrooms,
Yes.
And so, like, without that lack of understanding or even respect to what you're taking, the substance that you're taking, because in other cultures, as we study it and as we have come to study it, as more research, I should say, has come out, is all of the uses for it and how other cultures use it as a ritual. And that experience of mushrooms definitely opened up my blinders so much to embrace my deepest, darkest fear, which is of being alone.
Right.
And realize
when you face those fears or those things that you feel bad about or that haunt you in some way, when you're confronted and that's it, they're right in front of you.
Yeah.
If you do take it, like you said earlier, as a lesson, like with DMT or whatever, as a lesson, then it's something that definitely is going to be. I don't want to say good or bad because that's putting judgment on it, but it's something that opens life up to another level, especially if you learn to confront without the fear of suffering.
Yes.
I was going to tell you earlier about my in my childhood. I said I had some interesting things happen.
Yeah.
This is long before I ever smoked any marijuana or anything.
Yeah.
This is before I even thought about drugs at all. But I had some psychedelic experiences, if you want to call them that, from dreams that. Well, there's this. I had some nightmares that would recur, as everybody, a lot of people have had that. But I had this one time. These nightmares, first of all, were so vivid. They're still very much with me, and this is from young childhood. And they don't scare me anymore, but they're still with me completely. The experience is there. But this one, I had. I, not having done DMT, I equate it some with that experience, and maybe it was a release in my system. Who knows? But it was completely alien. Totally, I was in. I don't know what I was, but it was alien all around me, almost like two big walls of energy that were pulsing and moving in this dream. But the most extraordinary part about it was that I woke up and it was occurring. And it went on and on and on. So I was experiencing waking reality and this dream reality at the same time.
Whoa.
Yeah, my parents ended up calling a psychiatrist in for me and stuff.
How old were you?
I was like 3rd grade, 4th grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was a nightmare.
It was a nightmare.
It started off as a nightmare.
Started off as a nightmare, and it continued after I woke up. Just as vivid, but I was also able to talk to my mom at the same time and tell her.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
And tell her
just tell her about
what was happening.
I was terrified. I couldn't describe what I was seeing very well, and I still really can't because it's kind of indescribable.
Sure,
but
of
it was
course.
very, very alien. And the only reason I don't see it in relationship to the DMT that I've heard about is because I wasn't seeing the same kind of geometry that might occur in that state.
Sure.
But what I was experiencing, it doesn't relate to anything that I've known on Earth or in my experience otherwise.
How do you think it affected you, like spiritually and like creatively?
I think it did,
right?
because I always felt like as a kid that even though I wasn't using them, I had some kind of magical powers. And
because of that experience, right? Because
not just because of that experience, but because of other experiences too. But I came to think, and I still kind of think I can fly if I really want to. I'm not going to go jumping off any buildings.
Yeah, just don't jump off. Yeah.
No,
fly from the ground.
But it would take a total negating of all my conditioning to be able to do that. But I think we create our own realities, and if the mind was there to do that, maybe that could happen. Who knows? But
so here's my question.
Is me as a kid.
Yeah, here's my question because as a kid and your parents calling the psychiatrist, did they call the psychiatrist right away? What was that experience like?
I probably talked. I don't remember how long. Maybe an hour or two with my mom first.
But like the experience went on for.
It went on for hours. No, it went on for
hours. After you got up,
at least a whole day, maybe 2 days. So it might have been 2 days. I don't recall how long exactly it was, but it was
a long time ago, right?
Long enough for the psychiatrist to come over, and I still was affected.
And do you remember what the psychiatrist deemed it as or said?
No, I don't, because anything they said didn't make any sense.
Anyways, right?
To me at all.
Yeah.
And the questions they asked, I won't say I thought they were lame because I can't remember if I thought that. I think now that I probably thought they were lame, but I don't know.
Right.
I don't really know.
It's an experience, man. Dream states are such a trip. I don't know if you've ever messed around with lucid dreaming.
Yes, I have, and to some extent, at different times, I've been able to really go with that for a while.
Because when you're talking about flying,
yes,
that's where lucid dreaming
I've done that in lucid dreams a lot.
For me, like I remember the exact experience of sitting down, crossing my legs, and feeling like I was like on a magic carpet, just like heading up towards the ceiling and then moving forward. I've had a lucid dream where I was going, I don't know, maybe 600 miles an hour through the air too, and right through a building.
and not without contact, but there was no pain and no damage. But I mean, I could feel that, okay, I went through something solid here and I'm okay. And it kind of made me feel indestructible in a way. And so there was a certain kind of a underneath confidence that it made me feel, in confidence without being rooted in this part right up here. And I'm pointing to the Agna, the chakra up here, which is
third eye.
The third eye, and thinking about seeing things as they really are. I know that that's just something that I'm not going to rely on or even believe in, but that it happened changed me, and I'm okay with it. Right.
It's definitely an experience of dream states and being as crazy, like the script is.
Oh, being able to control your dream is cool, man.
That's the thing, is like the script is thrown out once all of a sudden it snaps that like, oh,
yeah.
Like just the other day, like just within the past couple weeks, I had a dream where I recognized that I was awake.
Right.
And I started flying.
You recognized that you were dreaming.
I recognized that I had woken up within the dream.
Within the dream, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When I say
I was awake,
dream,
right?
Was like,
right.
Like I'm in my dream state, like I can fly, and I just all of a sudden just like jumped and just like without fear, just like was like I'm flying, and then a little while later it was like wake up.
that is such a cool feeling, though.
It is an amazing. It's such an empowering. I mean,
it is.
It was an exhausting experience. I spoke on another podcast about this, but the experience of it when I went about it was like I did the research and had a notebook next to my bed. And
recording dreams is really good for that.
It's awesome. I mean, to be able to start like working on that muscle of recalling your dream. Yes. But then beyond that, what was weird for me, what became exhausting that eventually led me to stop doing it, was that I would start confusing the people that I saw in my dreams with seeing them in real life and wondering if what happened in dream state, was it real or not? You know,
I had kind of forgotten all about that because
it's exhausting. It was like I was like, I can't take this anymore.
Discerning which reality is more real.
That's and that was like a real thing.
Are they crossing over? Oh
yes, because I would apologize sometimes for just wanting to be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
and they'd be like, I'm sorry, I had a dream about us, and I thought I did it in real life. It's like, you're like, what are you?
Yeah. Those still happen to me some, but really? I can remember that happened to me a lot when I was younger.
Dude, it was amazing going to sleep. Like not amazing, I should say, like looking forward to going to sleep. But I've always been one to look forward to like having the nightlife, because like I always imagine being a musician playing in dark, smoky clubs. But also,
of course,
just because then when everyone goes to sleep, it's like, oh, bets are off. You know what I'm saying? It's like
reality is different now.
Oh yeah, you know,
the night air is a little different thing. Yeah.
Anyways, man.
Well, there's a bass player who used to say, "Yeah, we play better when the night air."
I like that, man. Yeah, I like that, man. Yo, so tell me about the work you've been making, man, because I know we were talking earlier about the galleries and like them hating because you don't have a style. You have so many different styles you love doing, and you've got a body, so many pieces within those bodies of work in each of the styles.
What I'm working on is a tree of art, meaning that I've got branches that I'll take and I'll extend those branches out, but I'll go on this other branch for a while too, but I'll come back. So I'm climbing around my tree all the time doing my art.
That's awesome.
And that's the analogy. It just popped in my head because it makes sense.
Bro. Yeah.
But I'm actually, I've got a former student of mine helping me put a website together now. I don't want to even say it right now because if I do, it's under construction. But what the hell? You could look at it now.
We will put up
but it's not done.
Links in all of that because when we put this podcast out, hopefully your podcast will be together by then. And then we'll be like, bam. You, like the cool thing is within the podcast, you can just like put that stuff in within the description. So people see the podcast or listening to it within their phone and are like, they click on the information and they're like, bam, what is this link? And it takes them right to your website.
Well, on the website right now, what I'm trying to get is categories. So like part of it is a shop where you can, but there's also the portfolio section. There's just kind of different ways of presenting the work, but I'm trying to put them into categories that makes sense. So you don't just see all this randomness going on. You can kind of see patterns. So you can actually see that, oh, there are coherent bodies of work going on here, because I guess of that conditioning of what galleries put in my head a long time ago. My work doesn't necessarily go that way. Well, it doesn't go that way. I'm not just doing a recognizable style all the time, but if you really get to know my work, I've got several recognizable styles that I work on. Yeah. And that's the way it works for me, and I'm not trying to do it that way. That's the way it happens. So I've got some very abstract work that I've been doing. I've got this one series, and I call it Polymorphic Suggestive Extractions. And polymorphic because they're abstract pieces that are meant to be turned polymorphic suggestive extractions. Wow. So the polymorphic is because these paintings each turn in all four directions. So I put wires on all four orientations to hang it up any way you want. Yes. Give it a turn every once in a while, and you get something different. So you've got polymorphic because it turns, and you've got suggestive because the type of abstractions that I've done here, I put touches of familiarity from our surroundings, from life, from landscapes, or you might see something that reminds you of a person in there or something, but it's not going to be fleshed out enough to be blatant at all. And it's not even necessarily, that's a suggestion for me that I might have from it, but you might see something totally different. So it's going to, I want them to interact with the art. When people look at it, I want them to interact. Yes. So what is supposed to happen there is your own associations you bring to the table when you look at these abstractions. And that's the suggestive part. So I put enough things that I think are suggestive enough to create associations that anybody would have or could have potentially, but they might take in a whole different direction. I love that when that happens. And then extractions, they're extracting meanings for themselves as they go. So polymorphic suggestive abstractions, that series is one that I didn't name until a couple of years ago, but I started in 1995. Wow. Okay. And I continue to this day doing it. And it's got that one has different branches of its own on it. So it's got twigs.
I mean, I would hope so. That's a long time. Wow. Yeah. So that is a powerful thing that you just talked about because, and I have to just like hint back to it because my dad does a lot of abstract paintings that I've taken and hung in different ways, even though it wasn't the intended way that he hung it, which is powerful, man, because you are interacting with the art, which is what you're talking about. Yes. And something that is part of my art is all of my art is interactive. Why? Because it's steel. And at least the parts of it that's steel, some of it's aluminum, but the parts that are steel, you can take magnets, and I offer these magnets with the pieces that you can actually interact with the piece and finish the piece yourself.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that is cool.
My father said that in art school, his art teacher taught him that an art piece is never finished by the artist, but by the viewer.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's such a powerful expression of like
I know when my part of putting paint is finished on a piece, but that doesn't mean the piece is finished. Right. Absolutely not. Right. It will have a life, if it doesn't get torn up and thrown away, it'll have a life for hundreds of years. Yes. Or 1,000 years, whatever, That's cool about art too, because it's going to affect whoever is around it. If you've made art that
is infectious,
that you can get interaction with, where people will interact with it. So these polymorphic suggestive extractions are something that I'm just fascinated in doing in all kinds of ways. But the way I stumbled upon that, a couple of different things that happened. One was, I remember when I was going to UNM, taking a drawing class or whatever, that the teacher said, well, turn your picture every once in a while, just see if it has balance and stuff like that. Great advice. To see if it's composed well, look at it. This is a realistic picture, and you're looking at it abstractly. You're looking at the values. You're looking at the lines. You're looking at how the space is being covered, and what's happening dynamically on the picture. And so it became very natural for me later. I was always turning my regular straight artwork when I'm in there's a picture of a house. Yes. So but I wouldn't just look at it in one orientation. I always turn it. I'd go back to that orientation to paint. But I would turn the painting and look at it and make sure that it looked good from all different angles as an abstract. So I was doing realistic paintings with an abstract sensibility or drawings. And that kind of got to me. But then I did this trip to Western Europe in 95, in 1995. And at that time, and we can get to this later, I'm not sure how long you go on these podcasts, but so, or not. but I took care of my grandmother for a couple of years. One of my grandmothers at my house, I moved her in because I was the only one that really could and didn't want to put her in a home.
No.
And that freed me up to paint like crazy. 1995 was a prolific year for me. It was the only year I've ever done anything close to that much is this year, and I've done more.
Wow.
So this is my most prolific year now, but 1995 was for a long time up until this year.
Now, just to jump to today, what do you think has made this year so prolific?
Well, because I left teaching my regular job
this past year,
a year ago.
Wow, this is your first year retired.
Yeah, well, and I would say I'm retired, but I'm not collecting any pensions, so I'm not retired.
You're not, because we don't retire as artists ever.
No, I'll never retire as far as that goes. But I'm not collecting my pension at this point.
Oh, really? Not yet?
You have a formula to add up to. I could collect it now, but they would take the percentage of it down quite a bit. So if I wait till I hit my formula, which is years served plus time served plus your age, has to add up to a certain number.
Got you. So you're waiting.
I'm going to wait until I'm 65 to hit that number. So I'm 59 right now.
Got you.
I'll be 60 later this year.
Yeah.
So I got 5 more years before I start collecting that.
Yep.
And I'll get Social Security. I guess at 62 I'll start on that too. But my house is paid off. So that's cool. So it takes my bills down a lot.
Yeah.
I still can't afford shit. I can't travel or anything much right now.
Yeah.
So I won't say I envy your traveling, but it's like something that would be nice to do.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty content. Content's not the word. I'm not content. Whatever's happening, I'm going to try to be, put my mind in a good place. So I'm that's part of my preparation for retiring was getting heavily into the meditation and also into
so how new is
Qigong and into
how new is all
yoga.
that stuff for you before you
I started meditating when I was in high school but I wasn't
you weren't like deep into the
there's a book that was very influential to me that I think I was probably out of high school or maybe early in college. I read Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. This is a book worth reading for sure. I've reread it a couple times since those days, but it made me it opened up my horizons. I'll just leave it at that.
Yes.
But
yes,
during that time, I was I got into meditation pretty heavy for. I didn't hold true to it for like probably a year at a time, but I would hold several months and then slack or whatever. But when I started this time, currently, it was, I guess, maybe 2.5 years ago or so, I started doing this regularly, or 2 years ago, where that's how I start my day. And meditation, I can do meditation right now in one breath. And all that is being conscious of breathing in and be conscious of breathing out and just focus on that. That's a meditation. You can do that right now and just breathe. And that's all you put in your mind at all is just that.
Right.
So breath is something that is helpful on that. But then Sadhguru will tell you that you're just focused on sensations of breath. You're not focusing on what breath really is. Breath also opens us up to the universe because we think of ourselves as physical beings, but in this physical world, we're connected to everything. There's not a strict boundary. If you put boundaries all around you right now, you're going to suffocate and die. You won't be able to breathe. We need air.
Yes.
Okay, and that air has been. We're communicating with the universe, with everything. I mean, every breath in is bringing some of the universe in.
Right.
Every breath out is communicating back out again. So it's just like, okay, there's a little pulse right here where this is a body and mind, but it's just part of this whole thing. And in this last couple of years, I really got heavy into it because I was getting very uptight about my job, to where it was, and I always loved teaching. I've always loved the teaching part. I really have, but there was situational situations that you put in that are just, they play on your head after some time. Behavior issues it can be a problem, especially in middle school and stuff like that. And sometimes that would really bother me, especially when parents get involved and stuff like that. And you got to deal with what's going on there. But the situations of behavior in a classroom that's reasonably well resourced, meaning that you don't have 40 kids in there or something. And if you have a lot of kids that are behavioral issues, you need somebody else in the room.
Right.
Well, in my last year, I had 6 kids on IEPs, which is individual education plans. And basically they were all behavioral issues. 6 of them. These kids were required to have aides in with them, and they didn't because they didn't have enough money to spread the aides around where they need to be. This is mandated but not funded. This is a big problem in education.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to go into all that because my head's not there now.
Right.
But I want to touch on it because it affected my mind enough, kind of dealing with the issues in that class, because there was it when you got a he said she said thing going on and you don't have another adult in the room. That can be a real pain in the butt, and it was. There was a couple of situations that got kind of tense for a little bit because lies were told.
Yeah.
And it's like that's not what happened at all. And I could find enough other class, kids in the class that would say, okay, here's what really happened. So this is clear. Okay. I really held myself to a pretty high standard in the classroom, and it was very important for me to do that. I was there. My first priority was always the safety of the kids, period.
Yeah.
And when you to keep that safety and you've got all these behavior issues going on in class, you're spending your time being a cop, making sure that everybody's safe instead of teaching. That's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. That's not what you signed up for. Right?
No, I had enough of that shit.
Right. So that's funny.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna take a little pause, a little bathroom break, and we'll come. All right, now we're back. So you were just showing me some photos off of your website. Was that not, or was
this? I do have. There is a website out there that hosts artist work, and I've got a large body of my work on there. A good portion of it.
Okay.
Doesn't have the most recent stuff because I haven't updated.
Nice. We'll at least include that in the links and stuff that people can get with this podcast. But that stuff's beautiful, man.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for showing me that, man. Your color sensibility and your especially that large one, that 7 by 5.5, 7.
Yeah, 5.5 tall by 7 wide. It's it's an abstracted landscape with a figure in it, and you're gonna have to go to the site and see it.
Yes, it's unnamed. It's a beautiful figure that is looking out on this incredibly colorful, imaginative, in my opinion, psychedelic landscape that is just gorgeous, man. But even the very first piece that you were talking about earlier from the series that you started, which is having pieces hang from different sides, and I didn't know that the inspiration came back in the 90s from stained glass.
Well, that was the inspiration for that painting, the series.
For that painting.
But but that was the first time that I turned the painting and painted from all different. So when I do these paintings, these abstract polymorphic suggestive extractions, I turn them as I'm painting, and when I get stuck, I turn it and it offers me something new to work with.
I see.
By the time I get all the way around, it's changed again, so I've got something new to work with. So I never get stuck on
I can dig that.
I never get stuck on.
I do that with with the figures that I create, which are geometric shapes that sit on the table or can be stood up or hung on the wall. You know?
Yeah.
So why the frick not just turn it and keep making it work, right?
As you work on it, you draw all these different orientations and it opens up the possibilities.
All right, so tell me about your creative process. So when you wake up every day, you said part of your routine is you meditate.
Yeah.
But beyond meditating, when do you first have the opportunity to sit in front of a canvas or an easel or even draw?
Well,
what's your
lately I've been doing these little kind of simple little ink drawings, which are really I wouldn't even call them drawings, just kind of playing with ink, with water and paper, so you can move it around some and get some really cool effects. And it's kind of therapeutic for me. But sometimes I've worked on those before I even start my meditation, just because I'm walking in to get my lemon water, which I have before meditation. And as I'm walking through the studio, it's like, oh, I'm going to do this. So I just stop and do it. But it's not, I don't want to take a long time because I want to do my meditation, but I'll do something short and get something started that I'll come back to later and add to.
Yes.
So I'll dabble. It's in my head when I wake up. So right when I wake up, it's not specific what I'm going to do, but I'm kind of opening the channels up to see what am I going to work on.
Yes.
Because that's what I want to do.
I feel like there's nothing wrong with that. And like sometimes that battle, that inner struggle we have of like, should I stop and do this or should I continue doing what I'm trying to do? But like, it's always inspiring whenever the creative energy moves us to be like, oh, wait, let me just lay down this little idea real quick that I'm going to come back and nibble on.
And that is...
See where it takes me.
Yeah, it's just an icebreaker for the day, too. Yeah. It's just a way to get into the day.
Oh, yeah. It gives you stuff to be like, oof, I'm going to finish breakfast and then I got this thing I'm going to go work on. Like,
right.
Yes.
So, I'll have my lemon water, like I said, do my meditation, and,
right.
Qigong and some yoga. And then I start, I have my real breakfast, which is usually a green smoothie.
Nice. Okay.
And so I start my day. I'm into healthy eating. I eat organic, and I eat. I'm vegetarian now, which is I've been doing that for a year and a half now. I had done that before. Well, no, I didn't. I was still eating fish. This was years ago. I did it for a couple of years, but with fish. And I'm just doing it because it almost feels like it's a karmic thing. I feel better in my soul when I do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it. I'm not pushing on anybody else. I'll go to any restaurant with somebody. If they don't have what I'm going to eat, I just refrain from eating, or just eat what I can. But after I do that, then I kind of sit down and just kind of contemplate how my day's going to be. I have 2 whiteboards in my studio, and one of them is for my students. I have private students now that come to my studio, and I'll leave that information in links as far as getting in touch with me.
Man. Yeah.
Any level, any age. Right now, I'm going from 8 years old to 70-something years old. I'm not sure exactly how old she is, but she's in her 70s.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I'm working, and with dementia, I can work with all different kinds of...
Art is healing, bro. Art.
It is. And we're doing it more like therapy in that particular
I was just going to say,
instance.
Art is a part of the healing process that allows us to give therapy to ourselves.
Yes.
And allow ourselves
it is my main therapy.
Heal,
Yeah.
Experiences. And so, like, yes, what you're talking about, I fucking love. I love that shit. The reason I went down to South Africa was to do that.
Yeah. Perfect.
It's tight. It's awesome.
And I'm not accredited as an art therapist, but my natural inclination, my natural inclination is I'm pretty good at that, approaching things like that. I took care of both my grandmothers in their last years.
It's a part of who you are, right? Like some people have that, as well as like that's a part of your experience with it. Like it's what the art and the music or what the expression does for you, and so you want to relay that and allow other people to have that experience.
Using expression to put compassion out there.
Yeah,
is healing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And so I'm working with students, and I've got an 8-year-old student, and we're doing puppets. She's making puppets and a stage and everything for that, and that's a lot of fun. And then
one of your students, that drawing that you showed me was just like that painting.
That painting. You got to see that
man.
painting.
Wow.
I'm going to put when I have my website, I'll get that link to you.
I hope at least
It's in process.
That's right.
But
all that's up.
That I asked permission. I asked permission from her mom and everything. This painting will be in the website for sure. It's a painting of a kitten, and it's a 10-year-old did this acrylic painting.
It's amazing. It's
with
beautiful.
Glazes and all kinds of things. I mean, this is a sophisticated painting, and it's 10-year-old, and it's not quite finished. She's actually got a couple more glazes that she's doing next week.
I love it.
She's got a name on it now, and I had to do that on Sunday because she's going to glaze over the top of that. So we wanted to get that on there.
Right.
So the student work I'm getting is really cool. I've got another adult, and I've got a teenager, and any age is fine. I like teaching any age, and I can adapt. First thing I do when I get a student is sit them down and just talk with them, have some conversation, and what I'm trying to elicit from that person is what is important to them and why is it important. Yeah. Where do you get your what is it that in your life that really is meaningful? And when we start finding out where the meaning is, and I've worked on some strategies to boil it down to the essence, to where it's not what they originally said necessarily, but what that does for them, the feeling it brings to them, or how it changes them one way or another. So we're getting to the essence. And once we can get to the essence of what is meaningful, then we have a starting point for the creative process for my students.
Yeah.
So, okay, now let's just write a little, and we don't write a lot, but we'll write, I want a few notes. What I want is this original experience, and how did we boil this down to its essence? And now that we have the essence, forget the original part. We're going to deal with this essence. Right. That's our starting point, and we're going to take that. Kind of depends. Now it gives us some idea of what media is going to be, what medium or media are going to be the best to use.
Right.
And that's a liquid situation. It can change. It's fluid. Ideas change, and understanding when that's productive is something that I pay attention to. So after teaching all these years, I tune into that. I actively try to tune into that all the time.
So being a teacher, being an artist, and being a music lover as well as a musician, you do play guitar, and you've expressed yourself for many, many, many years of your life playing the guitar.
Yes.
What do you think they all have in common?
What they all have in common is getting in touch with removing the day-to-day and putting a state of flow into life. And a state of flow is breathing. Again, I'm coming back to that because when you breathe in, you're bringing the universe into you, and when you breathe out, you're communicating back out with the universe. Yes. And if I think the mics were off when we talked about this a little bit, but if it was closed off, if you're closed off, you'd suffocate. You wouldn't be able to live. So if you understand consciously that this is going on all the time, all this information is accessible if you stop putting barriers up.
Yes.
And that doing art can take your focus away from the mundane and allow the flow to occur. So the creative process takes some preparation in advance, some practical preparation, but then after you show some fundamental skills and you show how to access ideas that are meaningful, that will take some commitment on your part, that not only require your commitment and demand your commitment, but make you want to commit. And so that's in preparation for the process. Then, when you're actually starting your art, I'll give some practical tips along with your idea, but not until I see what you have in mind. So I look for some quick sketches. What I want you to do is show me 3 different versions of your idea just in 5-minute sketches. And so that's the first step, is just give me some ideas of what you think and how you express that. And then I'll look at those and say, okay, here, this is working because, and we'll try to find how that relates significantly to the meaning that they're trying to portray. And it communicates to me because of whatever I can make associations with. So I'll start pointing those things out. And then we'll try to refine the ideas. Okay, what is this lacking when we look back at what we're trying to portray here?
Yes.
What's not there, and have them try to pull it out to extract that from their minds, so they can say, well, really, it's not sure. Okay, so let's over here you kind of accomplish that in this other little drawing here. Maybe we'll kind of do a little bit of synthesis here and put a couple of these ideas together or bits of these together and see what happens. So then we go through another process, and we're refining as we go. And so, okay, now we're going to spend a little bit more time on a little more formality, like composition. Okay, this composition, you have a really good idea, and visually you have some really excellent elements here, but you're leading the viewer's eye right away from your picture with the way that your dynamics are. You have diagonals that are taking you off of the picture, whatever.
Yeah.
So then we'll talk formally about a little bit of composition. And once we go through a few back and forths like that, they're ready to start. And then just kind of let them go for a while. They might look for, my students will generally look for, is this okay? Is this okay? You know, what do you think? And it's like, what do you think? And so I'll let them just kind of go back and reflect themselves on what's happening for a while. And then I usually do a little bit of coaching at that point where, okay, these are like 3 or 4 different strategies that you could apply.
Yeah.
Or maybe
Yeah.
these will give you ideas of a different thing to do.
Yes.
So I'll start throwing that out. And then so they get some tools to work with.
It's a powerful, critical process you put people into their creative expression.
Yes,
that's amazing, man.
And giving them tools as they merit them, really.
Yeah, and how to go through revisions and how to go through different drafts.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how to, dig deeper.
Yes,
and ask themselves the questions.
And I'll be hard on them on digging deeper sometimes.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Now you are saying that you do give classes so people can hit you up. You know, I will put all the contact information in the podcast and stuff like that.
Thank you. And my own art. Yes, I want to get to my own art here a little bit and just talk about.
That's right.
I am trying to make a living on this now.
That's right.
So I left my teaching job. I don't have a pension yet. I've got to wait several years before I start collecting that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make enough money now teaching individual students, or it could be small groups. I could work like that too. I'm not going to do the wine and everybody paint the same picture thing that's out there. And I got nothing against that. That a lot of people have that's entertainment for a lot of people, but it's not what I do.
Yeah.
With my art, it's not about entertainment.
You're still trying to serve your own creative soul, right?
Yes, and I'm trying to teach other people to access and express what's meaningful to them in their lives.
Yeah.
So they can find access to that meaning and learn means to express it.
Yes.
And that's what I'm working on. And my art, I'm working on that with myself all the time. And yes, I'm revising what I'm doing all the time.
Right.
I mean, within the moment, it's happening.
Songwriting for me, I'm revising all the time, or like sculpture making. It's like all the time. I'm going back and repolishing, or I even over polish. And my, this guy will come in and be like, "Why are you over? Aren't you gonna paint that? Why are you polishing it so much?" I'm like, you don't realize it's like you go through this process.
It's process,
and you're allowing people to be nurtured through that, from 8 to 10 to 70 years old. That's awesome, man.
But myself too, in my own art,
and not just take that upon yourself as what you do, but now what you're talking about, which is making a living doing it. Because now more than ever, we're in a DIY lifestyle,
and I'll tell you, it's and every artist will, most artists will tell you this. It's hard to make a living as an artist. So I joined the Rio Rancho Art Association. I live in Rio Rancho. I joined that, and I'm actually getting opportunities now that I didn't know about, just to exhibit kind of all over the place.
Yeah,
several places. Like I'm in a medical center, G&M Medical Center.
Awesome.
In Rio Rancho right now. I've showed at Loveless Medical Center there.
Yeah.
I'm going to be showing at Barnes & Noble next weekend. I'm going to be putting stuff up, and I'll be attending that, and Saturday, most of the day, I'll be there.
Yeah.
And I'll have a 6 foot space of my own work.
Nice.
That's up there. And so there's opportunities like that. I did the New Mexico Arts and Crafts Fair. The turnout wasn't as good as I thought.
I was just going to ask you if you're doing like any fairs or art festivals.
Well, I built this contraption on the back of my truck, which is not on there right now because I can take it off. But
for
hauling art and display materials.
I was just going to say for your panels, for your walls.
I have panels. I have
pedestals as well. Or no,
well, I don't have pedestals because I'm not showing sculpture currently. I've just been concentrating on two-dimensional work.
Right. But I mean, for like prints or anything like that you would sell that you
I
wouldn't.
do have a thing to display prints. Yeah,
got you.
So, and I do have nine of my paintings have prints right now.
Right.
Current paintings, I have prints for those. The one thing that I've been starting to sell that I realized a long time, I've got a lot of very large paintings.
Yes.
And they're, they cost some money because there's a lot in them. I put a lot of myself into my work, not just with time and everything else, but this is life that I'm pouring into these things.
Right.
And a piece of art, a good piece of art is something that will enhance the life of whoever has it. If it resonates with them, it will enhance their life and for generations to go. It's something that this is an investment that is not frivolous.
Yes.
Okay. Not at all. Not the slightest bit.
Yeah.
To make money, what the hell good is it if you don't use it for your benefit?
Yes.
And art is beneficial to the spirit, man.
Right, man. Preach.
It is.
Preach.
And music, and this is something that we have to have in our lives. And one way or another, we got to find this. And with a good piece of art, like I told you about when I was a little kid, this good art, it changed my life. Yes. I didn't even realize it at first.
Will take you on such a journey, not just a journey when you sit down, but every time you sit down.
Yes.
And allow it to.
And a good piece of art will take you maybe not on the same journey every time, maybe a different journey every time.
Just like a great piece of music. Like a great album, you listen to it over and over again.
I still listen to all my Hendrix, and I've been listening to it since he was putting out albums on his own.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man.
I've been doing this, listening to it, and good art does that. I started doing this series of miniatures recently because I wanted to make something that's more affordable for more people, to make it more accessible. Yeah. And I had never really worked that small before. But I did this one little painting I showed you a little while ago on my phone. This very first one, it was just done on a little canvas board, not even it wasn't
4 by 6 inches.
And this was for a friend of mine who was going to China.
Nice.
And she was a student teacher, not for me, but for another teacher there. But we were friends, and
she wanted to bring a present.
She just wanted to have some New Mexico with her, which went. And I liked this girl, I felt like, she reminded me a little bit of my own daughter, and there's just some things about her that I just, I'd never do this for anybody.
Yeah.
I don't just do these paintings and give them away too often, unless your family maybe.
Right.
And then they buy mostly.
Right.
My sister's my best patron ever, but
they support. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did this little painting, and it was just a view from my front yard looking out at the Sandias and kind of a tree arching over a little bit to help the composition kind of tie it together some. And I just gave that to her. But it got me thinking, I've thought about this before. I need to do some small paintings. So I found a deal on some art panels, which they're cradled art panels. So it's just like kind of like a masonite, but it's treated with gesso over the top, which is a good surface to paint on. And then it has wood cradling behind it, so it has some thickness and kind of gives it a good look to put up on the wall.
Yeah.
And they're 4x6 right now, but I've also got some 3x3s that I haven't painted yet because I got a deal, and I bought 36 of the 4x6s and 48 of the little 3x3s because the deal was so good. So I'm going to be doing these miniatures for a bit. But, I get, when I do a couple of these and it's like, okay, my eyes hurt. I need to move to something a little bigger. Then I'll go back and work on one of my big canvases. I've got a landscape going on right now, a good-sized landscape, and it's very realistic. Well, I say very realistic. There's some clouds in it that they're from my imagination, but they could be.
Yes.
They could definitely be what would happen in New Mexico.
I've always loved art that is from the imagination, and not to diss or talk bad about artists that use or go about creating their pieces from looking at photos or pictures. There's something just magical from creating something from the imagination, and it certainly lends itself more to be able to bring people on that journey. Yeah. which is awesome.
I think you can achieve that with very realistic photorealism is not my thing. Although I'll use photographs to do paintings a lot of times. That I'll take the photographs and do them that
just
way.
to get the essence, you mean, of like.
It shows me shapes, value differences, things like that. But I can play with colors.
Yeah.
You know, if I got a shadow that is it's kind of grayish and looks dull, I can add some blue and purple in there and make it, you know, have some richness to it.
Yeah.
And so understanding how to use a palette is something that that's in my consciousness when I'm painting all the time. I always want to use color to make the painting better, or when I say better, to make it to make the experience of the painting more interesting.
Now, have you messed around with oils?
I actually started with oils. Now I have some lung issues and I don't like breathing all that stuff. So I really I've learned how to work with acrylics where I can get some effects that are very similar.
Nice.
That I could fool people into saying they're oils on some of this stuff, but a lot of times I don't try on that because acrylics have their own character too.
Yes.
But you can get all these kind of glazes and extenders to extend the time
the effect, right?
Well, the liquidity instead of drying up real fast. Yeah, well, the shine's easy. That you can add stuff to get all that, so I can get the same kind of effects if I want to.
You're saying just to like lengthen out the time of it drying up with
workability,
because then it dries up and it's hard and you can't do anything with it.
But
as opposed to oil, which is like you can work with it hour. Later,
well, you can work with it over
a day later.
Several days.
2 days later, it's like it's still moving.
Yes,
you touch it, it's like too soon.
Oils.
Up, man.
I like that about oils a lot.
I love it. You know, but it's frustrating as hell. The first time I painted an oil painting, it was on a very small 12 by 12 little canvas that my dad had that I knew he wasn't going to be using. I think it might have even been smaller than 12 by 12. You know, a small little canvas, and I grabbed it and put it up and grabbed his oils and squirted out some colors and was just like, I'm gonna see what I can do. And I just got so frustrated. I started drawing and trying. I got so frustrated.
And it gets muddy when you start getting these colors on top of each other. It starts
turning brown. You're just like, ah.
Yeah.
And I like put it on the ground and I kicked a hole through it, man. It was just like, fuck. It was like my version of Jimi Hendrix's lighting his guitar on fire, But
I think you're talking yourself up a little bit much.
Not at all in the same capacities. Come on now. It was more just the act of rebellion of
I got this pedestal for Jimmy. I'm sorry. I put him there for so long.
Jimmy is my man. Jimmy is the reason I play guitar.
He's the reason I play guitar.
Yeah, man.
He's the reason a lot of people play guitar.
So, Brother Jim, so tell me. So people are gonna find your stuff soon to be on your website. I'm gonna hold on to this until the website's together so that people can come check out all your work. So then they can purchase some of the beautiful pieces, man, because those 4x6s I'm sure will sell quickly, bro. Because those are beautiful. The one that you showed me is gorgeous.
Once I start showing them to people,
I know it's hard on your eyes, but you got to do a little bit of all of the work, right?
Yeah.
And so small and big pieces are great to do, as well as like thinking just realistically as artists and making a living doing it. We have to have affordable stuff, as well as big stuff.
I still feel good about doing it. I like working on that. Some of my ideas call for a larger scale.
Oh, without a doubt, man. As well as just like you can make them small, but then you really want to make them big because it's like that's a big piece.
Well, it's like you want to just take your Marshall and turn it up, right?
Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
It's the same thing, man.
Dude.
You got to turn up loud sometimes.
I'm grateful to have you on the podcast because
it's a pleasure.
It speaks about like the connection between all of the things.
Yes.
And that's what Art Talk Music is about. So I was super happy when you messaged me. Man. That's what life is. Speak, bro. Preach. So I was very happy whenever you messaged me and you were down to come on the podcast and wanted to. So we'll do another one down the road, bro.
Yeah, sounds good.
We'll see what other stuff you got going on, whether they're exhibits. And I hope you get into some other art fairs, bro, because there are some things that, like you could actually go show your work or try and go show your work to sell and make a little opportunity to make some money.
Yes, and as far as the fairs go...
I don't know how the Rail Yards is, but I know that some people make money there. I mean, selling small stuff for print, at least.
Yeah.
But
there's all different venues that I need to explore, and I've got a large body of work that is available.
Yes.
I've sold a lot of work through the years, so there's a lot that's out there. But I do have a good body of work at home.
So it's just about
my studio
doing the shows. That's what I'm saying, bro. You've already got the inventory.
Well, and I told you I built this contraption on the back of my truck.
You've already got everything ready, bro.
Well, no, not completely, because the problem is that was fine for local because I've got it built, and I'll show you a picture after this is done. I'll show you a picture because you got to see it's funny.
Yeah.
But I built this thing out of 1x2s on the back of my truck, and it fits a 10 by 20 foot display, complete lighting, everything, a full professional display in a 10 by 20 booth size. Now, most booth size you do 10 by 10. This was a double booth that I did, and with tons of work, and I fit them all on my little truck because I built this thing, but it doesn't have a skin on it. So the air goes through. So I put a tarp over it and did it locally because I could drive slow. If I want to go out of town to do these shows, which I want to do, I got to wait until I can afford to build that skin on there. So come and buy a painting so I can
come and support. Come and support. Because it is a day by day and a step by step journey, bro.
But I'm doing well. I'm getting by.
I'm happy for you, bro, and I'm happy, inspired, seeing you as well as other musicians and artists that I know are hustling to make a living doing it. Because that's all we can do, man. I mean, I'm not to say that I like not titling myself either. So I'm not just a musician, but I'm also, this and that. It's like I do a bunch of shit, and all of it kind of allows me to make ends meet,
Right.
So
yeah.
I appreciate you, bro.
I'm there,
and I congratulate you on your year of being out of working the day gig,
Oh man,
and doing your own thing. So,
thank you.
I encourage you, bro, and I look forward to the next time, my man. Is there anything else you want to share with the people before we rest? I know the people are going to be looking all up and down the website because I'm going to recommend some of the amazing stuff in the intro and in the outro of the pieces that I really liked and enjoyed from checking out the stuff you showed me already from that one website. But then I know we'll have the full website up.
And you just saw a little bit of it. So.
I know, man. I know you got a huge inventory, man. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Claudia, the only thing I want to say is I have a passion for life.
Yeah.
And art is my way of expression. And that art can be visual, it can be musical, it can be in a lot of different ways. But expression is big part of life, but so is compassion, so is empathy, and so is centering yourself and feeling life.
Yes,
that's it, man.
Beautiful, man. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Claudio.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right.
Woo. Bye.